What is up, Honey Badger Nation? This is John Kitchens, and this is episode 115 of Expert Mentors Live. I am super pumped for today's episode as I got Mr. Jay Kinder and Albie Stasek on with us, and we are going to dive into the death of the real estate brokerage. Fellas, what is up?
What's happening? What's going on?
Let's get it.
Let's get it for sure. So, for a lot of you guys might not be aware, the most watched Expert Mentors episode we've ever done was done exactly 2 years ago. And it's called Death of the Real Estate Team. You can find it in the search. It's in the group here. But Death of the Real Estate Team. And if you go through and watch it, you'll understand why it's the most watched episode that we've ever done. And so a lot has changed in the last couple of years, and had the opportunity yesterday to ride shotgun with Mr. Kinder as we cruise down to Tyler, Texas, to kick off an amazing company that joined forces, now part of the Honey Badger Nation, and we really got into a little bit of what we're going to share with you guys today, and I'm really excited to unpack all of this stuff for you guys and really talk about where we see, brokerages and where we see things as they are in the real estate landscape today. So, fellas, let's kind of jump in a little bit and kind of, if you want to touch on the contrasts of team and brokerage and really what we talk about when we say the model that's out there for real estate.
Right. Well, it started with the conversation of Cindy Featherston, who just joined us in that conversation on the way down there. I said, you were telling me, ERA had their agreement. She'd been at ERA for 25 years. And, Realogy, all of their contracts are pretty much the same with that, 8.5%, 2.5% ad fee, 6% royalty deal. And so, do the math on what that was over 25 years, right? And we were laughing because they tried to save, they send in the big dogs to try to save you from leaving. And their approach was essentially they had nothing, right? So they tried to play on emotion. And what was it? What you said, John? Woman-owned brokerage or something along those lines.
They were just trying to give the franchise agreement back to her, and really play on that emotional angle is where they were really trying to come from.
Right. So there's nothing of any relevance to try to compete or change their model or innovate out of what they have done in the past, but they just stuck with trying to come up with something that, to emotionally get you to not think logically about the decision. So I thought that was kind of funny. And it's, evidence of what I believe is what we're going to see a lot more of right now. I'm dealing with, you won't believe this, get this. Neither one of you guys will believe this. So I get a call last night from none other than Johnny Kinder wanting to talk about EXP.
The big earn.
The big earn. My dad, who has had the Cole Banker franchise for the longest time. I said, well, I guess that's really
23 years. 23 years.
Yeah.
How long has that?
Yep. And so last night, after all that conversation, I didn't send nothing. He sent me a text message. I saw it in the car on the way home, and I forgot until a little bit later on in the evening. I called him. I was like, "Hey, Dad, what's up?" He's like, he started talking to me about EXP. I'm like, Are you calling me because you're interested in not renewing your franchise and coming to EXP? He's like, yeah, well, I thought so. It sounds like a pretty good deal. I think most of my agents are already on board with it. I was like, holy cow. So
Love it.
I never have tried to sell him one time on it because I knew he was in a franchise agreement, number one, but it's coming up due. And he's wanting to see. I said, well, we got to do the math. Right. And so started thinking through it and talking through some of the math and not on top of that, we've got a Century 21 broker that's just joined us. That's got 50 agents that their agreement just came due and they came on board. And so right now there's a lot of people that have been watching EXP and they're stuck in these agreements with especially the Realogy brands. I mean, they're probably the worst ones to be stuck in. I don't know. We got a lot of Remax people moving over too, but and Remax may be worse actually. I mean, there's no money in Remax. I mean, at least if you're Realogy, you probably have some type of split with your agents. At Remax, you're just a landlord. But so there's going to be a lot of that. There's going to be a lot of people moving. That's my prediction, that we're going to see a lot of people moving from, as their franchise agreements are coming due over to EXP and moving their brokerages over to EXP. And it's going to be really interesting over the next year or two what the landscape looks like as far as these brokerage models.
Hey.
Yeah. So Albie, jump in there a little bit, and especially you can speak, on the brokerage side of things. And being at Remax and you were even a discount broker at one time. Like, give some context to those models, from your viewpoint, your perspective.
Well, I can't really speak to the franchise piece because I never owned one. I almost bought a Remax, but while you guys were talking about Cindy Featherstone coming over 25 years at ERA, I knew that ERA stood for electronic something, and so I had to look it up. And so I just want to read this. In 1971, Jim Jackson founded ERA with the vision of utilizing the latest technology. Then it was a fax machine. So this isn't made up. This is what I was, So, but what's funny is that ERA obviously was founded by someone who was a forward-thinking person, or at least, thought that, before that, even when I got into it, you still had carbon. When I went to go pick up a contract at my Century 21 office, there were 3 carbon. I had to press hard, through the carbon, give out sheets. They were still using a fax machine, but we were still using carbon paper. I just thought it was kind of funny that ERA was founded on, a vision of using the latest technology, and kind of look where they're at now. They can't compete. So I thought it was kind of interesting. What I've seen is, and this is in the Death of the Real Estate team paper that I wrote, I did go back to, where it all began, and it was with the real estate broker. The real estate broker had a bigger role in the agent's career, if you will. I mean, from the advertising. I don't know about you guys in Lawton, but like the 2 biggest real estate brokerages, which was for us, it was Realty One and Smythe Kramer. They would literally have battles on how many pages they could get in the local newspaper, full page ads. And that was their value proposition to their agents. They're like, hey, we're going to put you in the newspaper, and we have the biggest, baddest ads, Mm-hmm. So now they had them on 50/50s or whatever they had them on at the time. And then, Remax comes along with a 100% model. Keller Williams comes along and disrupts the whole, you can just come here and get a cap versus staying with us and paying 50/50. And so there began the what I call the law of diminishing value that the brokerage model started seeing. Their value just kept diminishing and diminishing and diminishing. And then what I saw happen, we started seeing teams pop up, and the teams started taking off where the brokers were losing their value. And the broker had to keep giving bigger splits because of what was happening with the other, I don't know, you would call them traditional brokers, but, your 100% models with a cap. That's kind of where I saw it go, what I saw looking back where it all went, and which brings us to today. And now there's this new disruption, which no one likes to use the word because it's cliche, but it's true, that's disrupting the Remax model. And it's because of the stock. I mean, look, I've told the story a million times. I did not join this company because of the stock, but I'm going to tell it one more time because it's relevant to this conversation. And that we all talked about this. Our agents had no skin in the game. We were going to be fine. John Kitchens, Jay Kinder, y'all were going to be fine. We had agents busting their butt. We were doing great, making lots of money. And it was fine. But our agents had no skin in the game. Therefore, they were going to, our good agents, the ones that were A players, they weren't going to stay with us forever because they had no ownership in the company. And Glenn changed all that by taking the company. I joined 3 years ago this last month. So my first month of stock, which was 600 shares, just vested. Plus I bought another 550 shares roughly. That's first month. I bought that with the 5% of my commission check. So my first month with the company, I don't know if somebody has a calculator handy, but what's $43 times $1,150 shares? I don't know what the quick math on, but it's a lot of money. And that's just my first month with the company as an agent, not a broker. So you want to talk about the ability to build wealth over the course of your career. There's literally no other company that you could be at where you can build that type of wealth. And that's not even including the 16,000 in stock we got back from our first year as an icon. I mean, the math, it all comes down to the math. And I think with anyone out there watching this, if you're talking with a broker, you have to help them do that kind of math, and you got to show them that math because they can't even fathom it. Would you guys agree with that? We always talk about the math.
Do the math.
Do the math.
It's real simple.
I want to walk through the the stages of how the mighty fall. But before that, just everybody listening in, let's lay out some of the key pain points that brokers are feeling, right? And we can use the big earn as an example, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in law. Let's just kind of unpack that for everybody and share so everybody's really aware of what broker owners are really dealing with in today's landscape.
Well, let's start with what made my dad stay where he was at, and then why is he open to something different, right? And so this was something I didn't know that had even happened. He said it basically happened about 30 days ago. So short the stock Realogy. But Cardis, which was the biggest portion of business that most of these Realogy brands was getting their referrals from, one of their main contracts was USAA. So we were in a military market. So he got a lot of referrals, even though they were 40%. There's a lot of deals that got referred there. And I guess apparently the Department of Justice or whoever regulates that basically just said they can no longer make money in the mortgage and get paid referrals on real estate transactions because it's conflict of interest. And so they shut it down and instantly no more USAA through Cardis. And so there's really now no value whatsoever if you're in a market where that was some of the business that you were getting. So that's the only reason he probably would have been willing to switch, because that was it was kind of he was on life support as it was, but there was enough business there to stay. Even those referral fees were crap, because you can keep some agents if you when you look at I see all these different companies and here in Dallas even, and I talk to all these different agents, and there's a handful of agents that are getting enough referrals that it's hard to leave because they don't generate enough business on their own, but they're getting that 2 deals a month or 3 deals, and that's enough to live on. And in Dallas, it's probably just 1 deal a month to be able to stay in the business and stay in the game, and then you get your referrals and everything else. But you're still afraid to leave, and so when that kind of thing happens, like USAA not being able to participate in the real estate transaction is a huge deal. If you had 3 or 4 agents that you were able to feed from that, and so now you lost a big chunk of the revenue, because if you're smart, you're getting a 40% referrals going back to them on that, but you're also cutting that down to 50-50 on those transactions. So the agent's not making but 20 whatever percent, 21 or 29 or 29%, I think, if we did the math after the fees and everything, is what it ended up being. And so you can make a little bit of money that way. so that's an interesting that's an interesting change that's just happened. And I was just looking, I pulled up the danger report. You guys remember the danger report in 2016 and was looking through, what were the threats back then to the brokerage as Stefan Swanepoel did his research. And the number one, which hasn't been the case, but a regulatory tsunami hits, right? So regulatory creep and large financial, penalties, increase compliance costs. But interestingly enough, number 2, paper brokerages cause disruption. With no walls and little operating costs, paper brokerages proliferate and become a major force overnight. How about that for a disruption in the industry?
What year was that?
That was 2016. 2016.
Stefan's a smart dude.
Yeah, he is. And there's a few other things that are in here that are kind of interesting. A consumer brand crashes the party. So a well-established consumer brand introduced in the marketplace. I think we've seen a little bit of that, and I think we've seen a little bit of it being created. Compass trying to create that by buying the agents and bringing them over to Compass, and they're leveraging that to kind of become the brand for and all these markets and the higher end, they're very strategic about where they're trying to become the brand, the go-to brand. And so that is another disruptor that's out there as well. New business models go mainstream. The existing compensation structure gets eclipsed as new business models gain rapid traction. That's exactly what EXP did. They took a combination of two of these. This is a good recipe for, I'm saying, like, if you were opening a brokerage to try to think through how can I disrupt in this way, right? Brokers simply go broke. Once again, a problem that we know that's out there happening. There's no money in owning the brokerage. There's no money in owning a franchise. It's just there's not, and we know that's a problem, and they know it's a problem, but they don't know what to do about it. And now with EXP, we're able to help bridge the gap and show them that there's a better way.
Before you move on there, when we were talking through yesterday, countless number of examples of, and I think it just comes down, right? We said in the beginning, we got to do the math. They just simply, and I don't know if they know how to do the math, right? That was the thing where I was kind of what we were talking about yesterday, right? Is like the example you gave, 3 partners, they're, like they'd have to triple their head count. Yeah. And they still wouldn't even be making enough money to make it. I mean, they could go do one real estate transaction a month and make more than what they're making with those many agents. And
Al, you'll remember this. I think it was me and you that was on the call. I was trying to think if it was me and you that were on the call. I know that me and you had a call with this guy. Nice, super nice guy. He used to coach, I think, with us at one point, and he has 3 business partners. He's got offices in Ohio and Michigan. And he's got like 50 to 75 agents or something like that.
He's got 45 agents. I just talked to him yesterday, actually.
Did you really? And so, I had, about an hour conversation for the second time with him. And I told him, I said, listen, it's time for you to have the difficult conversation. I says, Michael Reese always says the most successful people are willing to have the most, difficult conversations. I said, you paid yourself $1,000. That's the most you've ever paid yourselves from this business venture. And, I asked him who owns and who's accountable for recruiting, because somebody has to be, in charge of that. And there's these 3 guys, one of which doesn't sell real estate, 2 of which do. Are the roles and responsibilities clear? Who's doing what? And just trying to help them get clear on, like, if you guys really want to do this, then that's fine. But let's get clear on who's going to own what, so that you know what you're responsible for. And do you want to be in this business, or do you want to be in business with these guys at all? Was the thing you really have to ask. And at the end of the conversation, I was like, dude, there's even if you still got to solve the problem of recruiting and retention regardless. So you can either triple your efforts in that direction, and maybe you make $3,000 a month if you're lucky, or maybe there's some scale, some economies of scale at that stage, but probably not. It probably means you need to hire someone to probably help you with recruiting, or to help with the number of agents you have. You're going to have some more expenses that go up, especially since he's got bricks and mortar in 3 different places. Like, you guys, at some point I have to wonder, did you ever do the math? Did you ever sit down and do the math as to what, or did you just come up with arbitrary numbers and say, I want to make this amount of money. If we could do that, that'd be great. Let's go do this thing. Right. But I talked to so many brokerages that are independent, or, the franchise thing is a little bit different. I think they got a good sales pitch, on the front end at least. But if you just do the math, even with that, do the math. What is it? How big is your business?
Hey, Jay,
yep.
He's doing the math right now as we speak.
Right.
Right. But and I'm not kidding. You know what caused him to do the math?
No.
Other than the reeling pain of the things that you just talked about, where no one's responsible for this and that, plus they ain't making any money.
Right.
When we talked to that gentleman, it might have been a month and a half ago or so.
Yeah.
He bought a bunch of stock.
Good for him.
Yes.
Good for him.
He bought a bunch of stock, and he's just sitting out, now he's got this big grin on his face, and he's like, maybe I need to do the math.
Right.
Because his stock app that he used did the math for him, and he made tens of thousands of bucks.
He made more in the stock probably in the last month than he probably ever will in that brokerage model, right? So it's just
right.
And it's hard though. I mean, it's difficult, it's difficult too. I mean, to give the guy credit, I mean, he did build a successful, a successful business with 45 plus agents. Not a lot of people do that. But it's, it's the margin that you got to figure out what your business model is first. And that's really the difficult thing. It sounds really great, on the front end, but if you haven't done the math and you start using assumptions that aren't real, that's the biggest mistake is you use assumptions that aren't real. Just like when you first start a team, we use the assumption, well, Reedy closed 6 deals this month, man. I mean, I guess if all my agents are closing 6 deals a month,
everybody's going to do that, right? Everybody's going to do that.
Everybody's going to do 6 deals a month. Nope. You're going to average 1.7. That's what it is.
Especially in the low fee type model is that they don't realize that most of those agents are going to do 5 to 7 deals a year. And I think they get hung up in doing assumptions on 12 to 18, right? Yep. So they double it and they understand. So that margin is only half. I mean, the reality, it's only half of what they assume it's going to be, or, they're forecasting. And that's the right math. And that's where, talking to these people, helping them do the math, they have to be real with the assumptions, or they're going to get tripped up and get, like what we always say, get rich on a spreadsheet. Yeah.
I think maybe gotten rich enough on spreadsheets in the past before that we've learned that when you do assumptions, you do the lowest end assumptions that you can get. And then you can shoot for better, but at least know what you're getting yourself into. The average agent sells 6 homes a year. The average agent in your brokerage is going to sell 6 homes a year. No matter what you do as far as recruiting goes, it's probably going to be, unless you have a specific niche that you're going after and you refuse to let others in, which can limit your growth. But that's the challenge I think that most people have. And even our group here, which is, in my opinion, the baddest damn group on the planet, the Honey Badger Nation here at EXP.
100%.
The average is 6, guys, like even in this group. So, that's the key, is nailing those assumptions on the front end and being realistic and not being optimistic.
Let's, is there anything else in that report that you want to touch on before we kind of shift a little bit and talk about kind of behavior?
Not really. The rest of these are things that haven't really developed. This one is relevant. Number 7 was technology becomes a runaway train. The financial resources necessary to build the technology solutions required exceed the average broker's ability to remain competitive. I think as an independent, this is a big one. You either have the chops to stay on the technology forefront, or you get left behind really quickly. And I think that's certainly a challenge that, the other thing that agents the brokerages are always dealing with is keeping up with the training and keeping up with the adding of value to keep your agents, successful. And so those are things that, if you're a brokerage right now, not at EXP, that you're feeling the weight of for sure.
Yeah, 100%. You look at any of the successful, brokerage model, team models that are run kind of that way, they're always at the forefront, like not married to anything. I think back even to us, right? Tiger Leads, Boomtown, Commissions Inc., right? Like we were moving fast based upon what was the best, and, not staying married to anything. It's just like when we were in Dallas with the brokerage, it's like, what's the best tool? Like, what's the best data, right? We're not married to right. Land Voice. Well, you guys weren't delivering. Boom. Red X, you guys jumped up. You were delivering for us, right? So it wasn't like, and I think you've got to be able to move quick like that to stay at the forefront, to keep moving forward, or you're going to get left behind.
Right.
For sure.
And the challenge with that is, though, if you don't have the margin, right, to continually, make that effort, and then, those changes in technology are difficult, right? Like you got people that you employ that do certain things, within the company, or your agents have to learn a new technology every time you switch. Like if you don't have enough margin in your business model, then you can't afford to continue to do those things. You just can't execute them. And so you kind of get stuck. And that is exactly how you get left behind.
You get stuck, or you get your butt back into production.
Ouch.
You've been out.
Don't make me do it, please.
Right. We know.
Go back into sales.
We've all been there, right? So it's just one of those things that, you go through, and that's why you got to know the math. Let's shift gears and let's talk a little behavior. I think it's really important to go through these stages and as we talk through this with you guys listening in to understand, and then you'll be able to look and kind of see where these companies and where these brokerages are at. So how the mighty fall is Jim Collins. We're really like all in with Jim Collins. We have been for years. If you guys are not have consumed his content, you're doing yourself and your company and your business a disservice. You could actually run your entire organization on Beyond Entrepreneurship. Just that book alone, you can run and grow your organization. I was telling Jay yesterday, Joel with VRX Media, they're 472 on the Fortune 500, 5,000
Nice.
fastest growing companies. They built
awesome.
VRX Media off of Beyond Entrepreneurship's principles. Like that, they built that organization just on that book. So
I believe it.
Yep.
It's amazing. But how the mighty fall, and it's looking for characteristics and behavior of how the leaders act within that organization. So as we go through this, you guys are probably going to chuckle a little bit because you're going to be like, yeah, that makes sense. So stage one, right? Stage one is like, that's the arrogance, right? And Collins says it all starts stage one with hubris born of success, right? So I mean, we can give some examples. I think we called it a couple of years ago. We're like, oh, there's stage one, getting a little too big for your britches.
Absolutely. Yeah. You heard it. You heard it loud and clear at, and there was an article that came out that actually pointed to this, but yeah, I mean, you listen to how cocky. We're a technology company. Now they're a cloud-based brokerage too. Keller Williams, there was absolutely some cockiness to. I mean, rightfully so. They were number one. What are you gonna say? You got a lot of confidence going into that. But then, go back in history and look at how many companies have successfully transitioned from one model to an entirely different model, and you'll find there's not very many. It's how you go to die. That's where you go to die when you try to do that. Especially trying to become a technology company. It's just absolutely every employee you need to run a real estate brokerage is not the employee you need to run a technology company. And in taking on that is a big transition.
Man, say that again for everybody listening in, right? Because this is so key, with the team that you have around you, right? So it's like, what's the goal? What does the team have to look like to hit the goal? If you're a real estate, your goal is to be number one in real estate. You have the team to get you there.
Right.
Now, if
with a particularly different set of skills than the people that you need to have around you to build a technology company, right? Like that, it's a completely, 70% turnover of your entire, entire employee base. So good luck, right? Like, can you imagine trying to like, I don't know how many employees Keller Williams has at this point. It's probably a lot. I mean, from what I know, I think EXP has more than 700. So imagine trying to replace 700 people that did 700 different jobs and shift that focus into technology. It would just be a massive undertaking from a leadership standpoint. I don't want any part of that ever in my life.
I think
we did it. I mean, and to be fair, at a very small level, we were at 8 million. The brokerage was doing a couple million, so $8 to $10 million company that did the exact same thing. We tried to transition our coaching and training organization into a technology play, and it was the most painful thing I've ever tried to do in my life. So on a very small scale, I can only imagine the amount of disruption and culture clashing that happens in that kind of a change.
I think where we can give some credit to Gary Keller in many, many places, right? But one of them is, and I don't think that he listened to his own principle, is that a successful brokerage, and I don't care if you're independent, if you're EXP, if you're Keller Williams, I know a lot of pretty successful, independent brokers. And it all boils down to two principles. It's the two R's. Can you recruit and retain your agents better than the competition. And if you're making an investment into something or a change in your model, if it's not solving one or both of those problems, and we talked about this when all this was going on, Jay. I mean, when Gary he tried to solve his retention problem, and I suppose a recruiting problem. I don't remember ever getting attracted to Remax because of their technology. Probably because they really didn't have any. But even if, like any company, I wasn't attracted because of the technology. There has to be an opportunity, or it has to solve a problem for me. And that's what our model has solved, both of those problems in a really big way. You know, with the revenue share piece, solves the recruiting problem. We don't have to hire team leaders and spend the money on that. The other piece of it, of course, is, you know, the stock for the retention piece. You know, I mean, after this summer, do you not believe that one of the reasons why we just actually hit our lowest rate for attrition with agents is because of our stock? I mean, people are going to take a second look at that and just it's a harder decision when you're looking at your portfolio, when you click on the button and see that you're sitting on $250,000, $300,000 worth of stock. It's going to give you some pause, you know?
Yep.
And so I just think it's about what Gary always said, that any problem in your brokerage can be solved. It's a recruiting problem with recruiting more productive agents, right? And so I just don't believe that was the right play. I mean, it's a play, but it's not stopping those market centers from all reducing their caps, because that's actually what's happening right now in my market right now. One of the biggest market centers around, they're all reducing their caps for all their agents. You know, it's like they have to, right? But they still don't have. They're still going to have the problem. I mean, that's their answer to retention. Let's lower the cap. But Jay, John, you've said it for years. It's a race to the bottom. That is a race to the bottom, and all that's going to do is reduce everyone's profit share checks.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's 6 1, half dozen of the other. It's just, I don't believe that they use the correct strategy to solve the real problem that they had in battling us. By the way,
what's a business model? The real problem that they have is it's a business model problem. They can't. We used to have a mentor. I'll refer to him as HOA. HOA. One of the most expensive people that we've ever paid. But he used to always say is this the real estate industry won't be able to innovate from within the industry. It's going to have to be something that comes from the outside in. And the reason for that is you can't, Keller Williams is trying really hard to figure it out. Like, but everything that they do to try to save agents, imagine this, right? Like, you got agents that are some of your top influencers. There's a bigger opportunity that you don't have anymore to offer to people, because you've filled all the territories in the marketplace. And so then they came back and refilled all the little smaller areas in between with other little small offices. So they used to have, the territories were bigger, then they got smaller, then they got little smaller areas that they allowed other Keller Williams to start joining, little ones, not, with 10 agents, 15 agents instead of 250 agents, which is what it took to be profitable as a brokerage, is what I was told by Dave Jinks, which is why the one in Lawton, Oklahoma closed. And so if you can't more opportunity and then a company has a business model that has even bigger opportunity than what you had before, you start losing all your best people. And as you start losing your best people, you start making deals, because you can't lose your best people, because that's why all your other agents around is because your number one agent in the office. I mean, David Keener, he's probably listening. He's the number one agent in the Keller Williams office he was in. Moved his whole brokerage over here to EXP. Moved his whole team. I think it's 22 or 25 agents. They lost their minds. They'll probably go under because of him leaving, because of the trickle down of follow him. Mention the revenue that he brought into the company. So they start making deals, right? Each individual franchisee owns a franchise, and they're making deals. They can do whatever they want. So they start making deals. Well, guess what that does to the profit share in that model? You start to diminish profit share. So you can't do too much of that, because then you're not even profitable. So, it's just everything they're doing working against them, and it's really difficult to compete with this business model that's offering so much more than what you're able to give.
Yeah, and I mean everything you just nailed right there is that's the backside of the whole, how the mighty fall, right? They're grasping for salvation, right? That's stage 4. There's of the 5 stages. Because they've gone through, and stage 2 was the undisciplined pursuit of more, right? We saw that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen them, they're getting high on their own supply, on their own success. They think that they could go do anything they want. And so that's that undisciplined pursuit. And then when shit starts hitting the fan, then denial comes in, right? So they hit that phase, and we've seen that, right? And you guys all out there listening in, you can see the brokerages in your market area, that you see these broker owners that that have gone through these phases, right? They just deny that change is happening, in they're slow. It's the Titanic, and so it's just that denial of risk. But everything that Jay just talked about right there was grasping for salvation, right? That's stage 4. And we're seeing it, man, deal after deal after deal, just like when we kicked this deal off with Cindy, right? The deal they were trying to make, right? They're just grasping for salvation. But
and going back to denial, let me tell you what denial is. So I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. And people aren't stupid. It's just, but this is where it comes from someone else at the top, and they say something like, "That's model's not sustainable. That's stock. It's just penny stock," right? Like, we watched this happen, right? Like, we watched for the last 3 years that we've been a part of EXP. We watched all the bullshit they would come up with. We're like, really? That's yours? After doing the research, that's what you came up with, is it's not sustainable? And I had a conversation with a really bright guy, and I really hope that he makes a decision to join us. He's an OP. He's been taken advantage of. He didn't get the percentage he was promised, which I hear a lot of that happens in this game. I'm not going to point to. I'm not saying that it happens all the time with Keller Williams or any one particular company, but I've heard that a few times through Keller Williams from people that are in ownership of Keller Williams, and so it works. But whatever, he doesn't feel like it. So at the end of the day, he's looking for something. He loves Keller Williams. Actually, he still loves Keller Williams. He said, but no opportunity for me here where I'm at. And so he explained to me how he's been selling against EXP, and he said he felt like he understood the model. And his main objection that he wanted to get clarity on was, he said, well, the thing I always hear, which means, again, didn't do your own research. I keep hearing from people that I trust above me, right, that should have my best interest in mind, that it's not sustainable. He said, well, Gary Keller, he tried to do revenue share and it didn't work. And I said, Gary Keller tried to do revenue share with bricks and mortar. And he's like, oh, I get it, right? Like, well, yeah, hundreds of millions of dollars in the model is. I mean, we don't, we're one global brokerage with no regions that we sold to anybody that we have to live up to a promise, and no franchisees that we gave a territory that we have to live up to a promise. And at the same time, there's also no growth mechanism within when you lose your. Somebody bought a region for $500,000, and then somebody bought the franchise territory that they can go recruit and build brick and mortar and recruit to an office. When that doesn't exist, then how the natural question is, well, how you grow it? Well, Glenn was smart. He said, we're going to make this opportunity so big that the right people are going to leave where they're at and come help us build this company. And revenue share was the biggest opportunity that I've ever seen in my lifetime, and you'll never catch me in another company. So, I mean, it was just a better way. Right. So it's fascinating to see, but watching what you're saying is like, how the mighty fall, which is the description of what we're seeing, not just, and we're not just picking on Keller Williams. I think they're just the most obvious. The company worse shape than anybody is not Keller Williams. It's Realogy Brands. Realogy Brands are in the worst position in my mind, because as these franchises come due, and agents are getting pulled from there to Compass is buying those agents, and they aren't doing the math. I mean, I think I saw Dan Beers post the other day. He's like, can we just agree that if you get offered, I can't remember the math he used, but if you get offered $100,000 in a 3-year agreement and a 90-10 split and you did X amount of volume, that you just they just basically gave you a commission advance on the next 3 years of your business, assuming that you don't grow at all, right? And that was the big point, is that's assuming you don't grow at all. They're getting 10% at Compass on everything above and beyond you grow. And usually if you're at that level, you should be going in at doubling, at that stage. So you're leaving way more money on the table, if you make that commitment. But that looks like such a good deal on the front end. If you believe, you're going to do any growth, it doesn't make any sense to do it. So there's tremendous, pressure on the Realogy brands and the independents that are out there to keep up when your best people are getting plucked from you.
Yeah. And it's such short-sighted too, right? And they're playing on how agents typically behave, right? And we've seen this with so many agents that we've worked with over the years, that they can't think beyond 30, 60 days, right? That's all they can think about. That's all they can see. It's just their next commission check. They're not thinking 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now. They're not trying to play the long game, and taking that short-term money. And just like what you said, and Beard nailed it, they're just giving you a commission advance is all it is. Like, you're not making any wealth. You're not making any money by taking that short-term money.
So did you guys listen to Brent Gove's the Gove address?
No, I didn't I haven't listened to it yet. It's teed up. I just haven't got to it yet. It's
fire.
Is it?
So, yeah, a couple of things he said, because he just got back from Tony Robbins' Business Mastery. So he's fine. I mean, the guy's already at a 10. Send him to Tony Robbins. He comes back at a 14, all fired up. And he said a couple of things I thought were great. The people that, like what you were just talking about earlier, John and Jay, were about where they're just misinformed, but they want to believe that. And why they want to believe it comes down to two things. It's fear is the number one thing, and ego. An ego, that ego's protected. The ego is being, driven by the fear, right? So he mentioned that and that's what it boils down to, is that they're afraid of being wrong. And going back to the book Principles, they're afraid to even cross over the chasm of being radically open-minded enough. Sounds like that OP you were talking to, he actually opened his mind up to potentially being wrong. Oh, he did or didn't?
He did. No, he absolutely did. Yeah.
Right. And that's all really it takes, because after that, they're going to have a come to Jesus moment, and they'll know what the truth is. That's the number one thing. It's screw all the bullshit. What's the truth of what we're looking at right now? And you don't have to, it doesn't mean that you got to leave where you're at. You may love it no matter what. There may come a point to where if you can just come to the realization of this is the truth, okay? And you don't have to like it after you know the truth, but the truth is the truth. And the truth is this, is that in 2018, when we came over in 17, and I got my Icon Agent Award, they gave me $16,000 worth of stock back because I hit that award, right? Any team leader that does a decent amount of production, or even a single agent that does, let's say 40, sometimes 35 to 45 deals somewhere in there, is going to get their Icon Agent Award. Now, that was given to me at $8, $9 a share or something like that. So I don't have $16,000 worth of stock. I think it's $75,000 or whatever it is. My 16 that I got is now worth 75. And there's no way that I could have built that kind of where are you going to make that investment? And let alone your own company that you're working for.
100%.
And on top of that, with the stock, the equity program, which agents can take advantage of buying the discounted stock, that just it's cream on top of everything, right? And so if they want to look at the truth, there is nowhere else that their agents can build that kind of wealth than right here. It ain't with them. And so it's a matter of them coming to that truth. But what Brent said was key, is that don't look at it like they're stupid. because these people are not stupid. I ignored this for a full year before I first looked at it.
We all did. We all did.
Yeah, it's because of fear. And we're married to our ideas, and we fall in love with our ideas, and we fall in love with our business model. And because we work so hard, tirelessly trying to figure it out. You remember Partner. I mean, you know, I remember Andrew Gadish and I trying to figure out a way that we could split up and give shares to our agents. And when I look back at it, I'm thinking to myself, even if we would have figured that out, our company's weren't worth shit anyway.
Right.
So
it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. But our hearts were in the right place.
Right.
And so I think that, you know, just for people listening to this episode, I think a couple key things to write down to take away. One would be, you know, you'd better start having some conversations with broker owners right now. I think that, you know, start establishing those. And now you know where their pain points are from listening to this episode. You know where their pain points are, and you know maybe why they're staying put where they're at or living in this denial is because of fear. And so if you can have an empathetic heart toward these individuals, you're and understand that it is only fear. And then all you have to do is help them get over fear. You're going to have some success in bringing over more brokerages, which is really where, you know, that's the focus right there. It's bringing over entrepreneur people, you know, who are interested in growing.
Yeah, I think a couple things there that I want to emphasize, Al, that you shared, and then I want us to kind of wrap up about what we just said about the heart in the right place, but the fear, and you were talking ego, right? And it's more so outcome over ego, right? The ego is essentially we're trying to be right instead of trying to get to right. And that's where we have to help them, right? It's you know, yeah, you're protecting that you're right, but it's like, what's the solution? Can we get to right? And the other thing that you said about truth is that for something, and this is just a good little mental trigger for all of us, in people's beliefs, right? And it's their truth. And we always joke, hey, just because you believe something doesn't mean that it's true. And so a way to look at that is, for something to be true, could it be proven in a court of law that they would agree that that is fact? And could we get everybody to agree that that is fact, right? That's truth. That's what we're trying to get to. And so when you're challenging even your own thoughts and your own beliefs, you know, is that true? Could we go into a court of law and they would all agree that that is true? And if it's not, then you got to be open to being wrong. And I'm just trying to get to right. And so those are a couple things that jump out, I think, mentally, to kind of think through, not only to help yourself, but to help these broker owners as you're you know, having the conversations with them. But I want you guys to take us home here on, you know, what Al and Gaydosh were trying to figure out was like the heart was in the right place. And Jay, you nailed it yesterday with you know, when we were talking to Cindy and her and her entire team about, you know, like, we want to just add so much value, but the margins don't allow it until now. So I would love for you guys to just kind of touch on that a little bit, and you know, kind of bringing this episode to a close.
Yeah. So you know, what it boils down to is, you know, what's, you know, how do you add the most value to the agent so that they never want to leave? How do you create the environment that where anything and everything that they need is delivered, and they would never want to go somewhere else? And, you know, I go back to the leverage, you know, that they've created, and it's, I don't know if I want to unpack this here on this particular call, but the amount of revenue share that's potential that there is, and just to cover it lightly without having to get into detail, I would say that me, Al, and Michael all having 40 agents in our revenue share group is the equivalent of $300,000 a month that we would be leaving on the table. The amount of effort that goes into agent productivity as a focus of ours and trying to help agents sell more real estate because we have a $3 million problem that we're trying to solve is going to benefit every agent in this company. That's And I don't believe that I don't believe anyone in the company recognizes the level of effort that goes into trying to find a higher quality buyer right now for an agent has never been a bigger focus than it is right now. And the iterations that we're going to have in that direction is going to benefit the agents that we directly sponsor, and then the agents within our group, and then the agents within the company. It's going to force innovation and force us to get better and better and better at helping agents get to productivity faster. There's no better leverage that EXP could have created in their business model than having that level of intensity and effort on solving problems for agents. All right. There's not, you couldn't have paid us the amount of money. Well, you could. You're paying us actually. Yeah, you are paying us what we're worth. The business model is so superior to any other business model. The level of effort of helping agents become more successful is going to be unmatched by any other brokerage.
Well said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's spot on. I never thought of it that way, although we're in the midst of doing that right now. Talk about a level of motivation,
right?
You know, and they're motivating the right people. They're motivating the people that were trying to solve the problem from the beginning anyway.
Right.
Whether it be just, you know, high level team members like Mark Z, like Dan Beer, Kyle Whistle, Curtis Johnson. The list goes on and on. Someone like Chuck Fazio. You know, we could just keep going down the list. You and Mike, who are, you know, constantly. I mean, if we really look at this in 2016, I remember you on stage with Stefan Swanepoel right after he brought that report out. I believe you guys were one of the first ones to ever even interview him, you know, like on a stage. And so it was, you know, when you talk about someone who's innovative, it's individuals who are trying to solve problems, right? And obviously, if you can solve the right problem, there can be a great payday involved. And I believe that you know, the people that can solve the biggest problems deserve the biggest paydays. Steve Jobs, you know, look at Glenn Sanford, which by the way, I think he might be floating around in a new yacht, according to Mr. Brent Gove right now. I can't wait to float around and do a little champagne cheers on that yacht.
Right.
I can't wait to see it. But he deserves it. He deserves it because he solved a problem that no one else has been able to solve. And what's super cool is he solved it in 2009. It just took us this long for it to catch up, you know, to get here to us. And so, yeah, man, great episode, John.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
the topic is so spot on. And I hope that everyone listens, you know, gets some value, but more than get value, goes out and starts to have some conversations with these brokers who, you know, are hurting right now.
Yeah.
That's how you win after listening to this episode. I've already Facebook messaged too while I was
right.
So,
and what I'd also encourage everybody that's watching this to do, number one, we may end up making this one shareable so that you can share it with the brokerages that and the people that you feel like it might be relevant for. But also that we have on my YouTube channel, or if you just Google it, you know, EXP for Independents and Teams. Al and I did a breakdown where it focuses on the pain points of the brokerage, and that's a great version to share. I don't think there's another version like that out there, but a great version for them to share, to take a look at if they're open-minded. And then the last thing I would say is, if you are listening at this point and you're seeing that maybe, okay, I've got an open mind here, I'd like to figure out how to make the math work. Whoever may have shared this with you, you need to get with them, because we can help you do the math. And I think a lot of times this is where the hardest part is, trying to figure out, well, how is this transition going to look? What are the agent splits going to look like? And how much money am I going to be leaving on the table? And as I started doing this last night, I mean, I was with my dad, so I was going through. I know who his agents are, and I kind of know what all his splits are since I was there for so long. So just trying to figure it out. It's never as bad as you think it's going to be. It's usually a win in the revenue situation. So if you're thinking it's going to be super costly or you're gonna lose a bunch of money, it's probably not true, and there's probably something you're missing. And so let us help you guys with anybody that you're working with, or if you're somebody who's watching this, reach out and let's make sure that we have a conversation so we don't miss something.
Boom. Spot on. Fellas, I appreciate you guys. This is definitely a what is it? An instant classic,
Right.
and a much must watch to get out there for these broker owners, small teams, because they're staying up at night, and we can definitely help them. So appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for listening in. If you need us, reach out to us, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Thanks.